I learned that actually, I didn't know this. I thought it was kind of just me. Women need more time to get aroused. I think some people say it's 30 minutes to get aroused on average. And when you've been doing this in between kids and school runs and you've been trying, let's have a quickie before whatever, then you lose that. And so this is something I love to just take a break, tell my husband, do you want to give me a massage? That's where it all starts because I got to get out of my head. I got to stop thinking about work. I've got to just relax. And sometimes you think, "God, it's like the last thing. I mean, I have so much to do. It's a luxury almost." And you think, but if it's important to you, you will take that time. But it does take time. So my husband's now well trained. He knows what you need to do. But it took me a while to understand this. And thanks to all the guests that I've had, I realized, oh, there's so many things that we can do. And I do hear this is often about this erotic sensuality. If you haven't, imagine couples who haven't had sex in years or months, and it must be awkward to get back into it, or they don't even know. So starting with just a bit of touch or hand holding or just getting intimate. And I think that's what women say, oh, I'm be without sex for the rest of my life. Fine. But could you be without intimacy or connection or love for the rest of your life? And that's, I think, a harder thing to answer. And that is part of the package, and that you have to have sex, but that's what I think is important for many women.
Think too, in the nature of a healthy relationship, we also have to, can our partner be without sex for the rest of their lives? Because we do need to consider around, like I start with like priorities, an activity I do a lot in a lot of the earlier part of my courses is tell people to make like a pie chart and put 24 pieces of pie in it, each representing a hour of the day. And, hopefully you're getting 6 to 8 hours of sleep. And obviously with hot flashes, you might not be fully sleeping, but hopefully you're at least resting for that. But you fill in the rest of the pie chart with what you're doing the rest of the day. And what you're looking for is, do you have anywhere for your partner where you're really putting quality time in? Let's just take sex out of it. And for many people, like we overfill our schedules and we feel like, okay, well, this relationship now that we're living together and all this is just supposed to be good. But it's like anything. If we don't put time into it, what will happen? So that's where I think there is a real come to Jesus, as people say, just like this real like point of being radically honest with ourselves and with our partner around like, okay, this is great, but to say I don't care about it, that alone doesn't seem like that big of a deal. But when we take a step back and be like, well, are we prioritizing our relationship? And are we helping nourish the fact that this might be an essential thing for our partner? And what's going to happen to our relationship if this doesn't happen? We really want to take, I think, an honest look to say, let's just not say I'm not in the mood. Let's actually analyze for what the impact is to help motivate ourselves to figure it out. Not saying it's easy, just saying that oftentimes it's worth it.
I guess it's all about the motivation. How important is this to you? And if it's not, then that's okay. Do other
Correct.
things. But if it is important to you, you will find the time or make the time. And I guess that's any coaching program. That's always where you start, is the mindset.
The why. Yeah. Mindset,
So,
the why. Exactly. Is extremely rare that I would see anybody responding and really figuring this out from only one thing. Unless we're talking about, oh, I caught a flu or something like that. Pretty much anytime there's an imbalance in the body, I see it as like a pie chart of many root causes that are contributing. So do I see many times where women get put on HRT and testosterone in particular, but all of the hormones have a role with sexual health and it gives them a major boost? Yeah. But oftentimes there can still be lack of motivation. There can still be other things that are playing a role. And the mental corollary to it on some level is part of it most of the time. It's not the sole point of it most of the time, but it is a huge part of it. And that can be anything from being overwhelmed, the stress, the vicious cycle of the brain. It can be to just like the menopausal changes on the brain. But another really common one that I actually should say like two that people are not oftentimes either aware of or just like willing to admit is one, that they're a little bored from a standpoint of sex. Like when we've been having sex with the same person, oftentimes in the same 2 or 3 ways for decades, it's gonna get a little boring. And there's ways we can make it not boring. But if we're left to our own devices and don't talk about it and explore, it'll get a little boring. And so that is a huge thing that actually impacts motivation. This is why people join gyms to go to classes. That's why there's Barry's boot camp. There's all these spin classes. classes, there's all these things, because what we find is when somebody mixes things up for us, it keeps us a little more entertained. Same things with sex. So that's one thing. And another thing that a lot of people don't realize is our sexual organs also change. And so there's actually a need. I mean, some of the needs and the desires are psychological. We see that there is a huge increase of when people are interested in anal sex, and we're talking about women here, in their 40s. So we get to this period of where we're starting in this midlife time period, and all of a sudden, wow, we're interested in a higher amount in this new thing. So that could be the novelty, but it also can be the fact that we literally are reconstructing ourselves. So we see, for example, that some women over like the G spot, which has had a lot of press on, one of the gold buttons for women, well, the G spot actually can form scar tissue.
Oh,
So
wow. Like if you touch it too much, it can get scar tissue. Like how does that?
Sometimes it's thought to be through childbirth and scarring from that. Sometimes it just could be like not taking care of the tissue correct. So it doesn't happen to everybody. And I don't think it's from like too much sex, but I don't think we honestly know exactly how it totally forms. But just the point is that like sometimes in time this can happen. And so the point is, well, if this has happened, this spot that might used to have a lot of pleasure, maybe it's like a little bit numb now. Maybe it doesn't give you that same level of pleasure. And so from a motivation standpoint, back to your opening statement around pleasure, if we're not experiencing much pleasure because our anatomy has rewired itself a little bit, there's probably also not going to be a lot of motivation to have sex. If it's not doing a lot, why are we going to be motivated to do it?
I don't remember where I read this, but because women's anatomy can be so different from person to person. When you think about boobs, like you've seen all different kinds of shapes and sizes and colors and all that. The same evidently is for the vagina. And if you were to go inside and measure, some have longer ones, shorter ones, more, and that maybe explain why some women are much more sensitive than others. Is that true?
Some of that's true. And there's also like even location. So for example, like the location of the clitoral head, the clitoral bulb of the clitoris is so much bigger than what we see on the outside, but the part that most people think of the clitoris, how close it is to the vaginal opening will be directly related to if a woman can orgasm from vaginal sex or not. So it's estimated that only 18 to 30%, depending upon the study that you look at, of women that can actually orgasm from vaginal sex. And if you can, it's almost surely that your clitoris is closer to that vaginal opening. And when it's closer, you're actually getting more stimulation of that clitoral head than somebody else. So this is really important because a lot of women are like not having orgasms or not having great orgasms and thinking there's something wrong with them. And unfortunately, a lot of men think that, wow, if they can't totally please a woman through penetrative sex, then that means there's something wrong with him or there's something wrong with her. And this is just a huge part where we need to really continue to educate, where it's like, oh yeah, we actually need, a lot of women really do need to bring in a level of clitoral stimulation, and they're not getting it. 70+% are not getting that with penetrative sex. So I think that's an element where we differ. Another example of this is if you look at that clitoral bulb, there's a covering on top of it, right? So there's this like protective skin because it's so sensitive. And we have all of these nerve endings. We have 8,000 nerve endings throughout our entirety of our clitoris. And so what can happen, like one difference is how sensitive that clitoral head is. So for some women, you really need to touch the clitoris only on top of that clitoral covering. And if you go up from on the clitoral head from the direction of anus upwards, anus towards belly button, you're going to get into under that hood. You're going to get to that bulb more easily. And that can really, for some women, overpower them. And it can be like, oh, don't even touch me there. And that can change throughout our life as well. And other women, that direction is going to actually be amazing. And you're going to get like profound orgasm very easily. So if it's too sensitive, you need to typically go in the opposite direction from belly button down, because then you're going to be rubbing more over that covering, or more over that hood, and it's going to lower that sensitivity. So this is where it's like we have to understand that it's like our bodies are changing over time, and woman to woman is so drastically different. And oftentimes it like we go into sex, especially in our 40s and 50s and 60s, and think, well, I've done this enough times, I have this all figured out. And actually we've been on mechanical mode from whatever sexual experiences we've had without actually having that discussion as a couple and working with our changing and evolving bodies.